Hi there, and welcome to this edition of The Brief. It is Friday, of course, the 8th of April. Looky, here we are at the weekend. Of course, we have our featured guests on this edition of The Brief as well. Lots happening and many updates to share with you. Of course, we are also still broadcasting via online, despite things going back to normal. So I'm multitasking a little bit here at the back end as I get my script in order. And today, of course, is an important day as well, as we also recognize and bring you some of the trending stories that's happening in and around the country. I'll be joined by Ravi Chandran of the Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia, talking to us about taxes. That's right, it's that time of the year as well, and hopefully there won't be any disruption this time around, as we experienced during the last attempt to speak to Mr. Ravi Chandran. A little later as well, I speak to BARJOYAI BADAI, Professor Emeritus at Universiti Tun Abdul Razak, on the border reopening and the economic impact. All that happening right here on The Brief. But as usual, let's begin with the news in brief. Now, here's an update on yesterday's announcement from SIRIM. Enforcement requiring manufacturers and importers of non-medical face masks to apply the MS SIRIM certifications and labeling have now been postponed up to 2023. Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Minister says that the government was not making what they called a U-turn, but the decision came in consideration of the public sphere and, of course, concern over potential price increases. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health is planning to introduce the Drinking Water Quality Act in an effort to elevate the protection against health hazards due to unsafe drinking water. According to the Health Minister, MOH has carried out the Rural Environmental Sanitation Program for over 50 years, which has played a major role in providing clean and safe water supply to rural communities and throughout the country. In the meantime, TM's fiber network expansion to improve the country's broadband coverage and quality has now covered 5.9 million premises in the first quarter of this year. Its chief network officer says that 6 million premises were entrusted under the Jendela initiative. With the existing infrastructure, it is also said to speed up the launch of the 5G network. Meanwhile, in Johor, the Sultan of Johor, Sultan Ibrahim Sultan Iskandar, has ordered for all diving activities in Mersing waters to be halted temporarily. The order came following yesterday's incident involving 4 foreigners going missing in Pulau Tokung Sanggol during a scuba diving session. So far, only 35-year-old diving instructor Christine Grodem, a Norwegian, has been found safe 30 nautical miles from the location of the incident. Of course, this too was viral on social media, and many of those online were speculating and talking about the safety, and we're happy to hear that there has been some updates on that as well. And here's an exclusive: hallucinating to the point of killing a close family member or friend over the suspicion of being an evil spirit or enemy are among the irrational behaviors observed among long-term addicts of stimulant drugs. Long and short of it is, stimulant drugs have direct implications on psychosis. To know more about it, log on to Bernama.com to read this very interesting piece. And it's about time, of course, to bring in my guest for today. We have joining us today on this program, Mr. Ravi Chandran from LHDN. Hi, Mr. Ravi Chandran. It is good to have you here on the airwaves, and good to see you as well. It is this, of course, time of the year. As they say, right, 2 things are certain in life. One of it is taxes. And at this point of time, people are wondering whether they know what needs to be done, know about the process, and to find out more about some updates in the new norm as well. So let's begin with this question: what are some of the challenges encountered by LHDN after the 2 years of the pandemic, Mr. Ravi?
Thank you, Jessy. I'm back.
Yes,
Okay.
like the Terminator.
Yeah. Okay. Back to your question. The pandemic period, which spanned 2 whole years, was something we had never experienced before, and admittedly, we were caught off guard. As businesses everywhere was affected, resulting in very reduced liquidity for the bulk of our taxpayers. We had to re-strategize and introduce new measures so that our collections did not dwindle too much. For your information, Jessy, for the year 2020, when the country had been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, the original target of direct tax collection for that year was 154.6 billion. However, it was amended to 127.1 billion during the tabling of the 2021 budget. This target has taken into account the various challenges and incentives that have been introduced by the government following the implementation of the Movement Control Order to ensure the continuity of the country's economic activities. The implementation of MCO following the spread of the increasingly serious COVID-19 pandemic in the second quarter of 2020 had a significant impact on domestic and foreign trade uh, activities following the cessation of most of the economic activities. It also has an impact on tax collection on various sectors, namely the tourism sector and also the petroleum industry. As of
That's
the
right.
tourism sector, which is one of the backbone of the country's economy, has come to a complete halt, which has affected the activities of hotels, aviation industry, transportation, souvenir sales, and shopping in shopping malls and
Yes, Ravi,
others.
I do agree with that. But coming out of this now, after 2 years, what are some of the stemming issues in terms of concerns of lack of response, of on-time tax payments? Will we be seeing higher rates of tax evasion at this point?
Actually, answering your question on tax evasion, there's still a handful of taxpayers who deliberately do not report their income or report inaccurate income for tax purposes to Hasil. So what we want is for the people to carry out their tax responsibilities voluntarily, because only in this way we can guarantee more sustainable tax collection all the time. In addition, we also face the challenge of managing the shadow economy, which remains a threat to revenue leakage, and e-commerce based businesses are increasingly becoming an option at the moment. So to address shadow economic issues, Hasil, of course, we focus on enforcement actions aimed at educating and raising awareness on the importance of taxation.
Right. From your observation, which group perhaps is harder to handle or you feel poses bigger problems, individuals or corporations?
Well, if you are looking at what you call which group is harder to handle, frankly, neither is considered difficult to manage, nor poses bigger problems to Hasil, because we believe with the measures implemented by Hasil to increase national tax collection, the snowballing effect can also increase the level of awareness and compliance amongst taxpayers, either for individuals or companies. At this juncture, I would like to share about the shadow economy, which is around 21% of GDP. Okay, and for the record, this shadow economy involves those who try to avoid being taxed. Well, Jesse, if you ask me who is involved, my answer would be individuals as well as companies. So in
Okay.
this issue, Hasil has always been proactive in addressing shadow economic issues with the aim of increasing tax compliance rates and increasing national revenue collection.
Right. So, with
It
all
is
that in mind and being proactive as well, looking at the shadow economy and, of course, leakages that happen, what kind of methods or ideas are being used by LHDN in creating awareness about tax payments and some of these issues as well amongst the general public?
okay. We have implemented several measures to create awareness of income tax among the public. We have sought the help of media to publicize our presence and importance. Furthermore, we have made our presence greatly felt in social media, as you would have noticed, as that is where the present and future taxpayers spend most of their time. Our website has been greatly enhanced with numerous features like My Tax that provide easy hassle services such as the e-filing, e-stamps, e-daftar, and Baya Hasil to make it easy for the public to register, to comply, and to pay. And apart from that, we are also airing commercial ads at prime time on several TV channels, as well as being broadcasted on various radio stations. Actually, we have prepared community messages as well and work with the social media to assimilate our messages in a friendly way to convey our tax products.
That's right. Social media definitely the way to go to get that message out there. Mr. Ravi, we want to thank you very much for giving us some of your time today. I know a very busy time of the year for you and the entire team at LHDN. And rest assured, us here at Bernama, and especially at the brief, we have or perhaps are doing our taxes. So we'll speak to you very soon. In the meantime, do take care. That was Mr. Ravi Chandran from LHDN weighing in a little bit on some of the tax issues faced here in the country, and of course the awareness campaigns as well. Well, it's time to take you through business in brief. The ringgit, the local currency, extended its downtrend against the US dollar, opening lower today as the greenback strengthened amidst positive US economic data. As of 9 a.m., one US dollar stood at 4 ringgit and 21 cent. From ringgit to the Bursa, it opened marginally higher today, taking the cue from the overnight Wall Street performance, which rebounded on bargain hunting after a large loss incurred the previous day. According to dealers, at 9:04 a.m. today, the FBM KLCI was 0.40 of a point better than yesterday at 1601.19. And now on to those interested to purchase gold. As of 9:30 a.m. today, the physical price of gold stood at 253 ringgit and 68 cent per gram. The Cooperative Societies Commission of Malaysia, SKM, is committed to empower online businesses by helping develop more competitive cooperatives and reactivate those affected by the pandemic. The 20 million ringgit aid injection through the rehabilitation program is set to help boost the income of cooperatives and reduce the number of inactive ones. And in international business, China's marine economy saw a robust recovery from the pandemic last year, with multiple industrial indicators topping the global list. The country's Ministry of Natural Resources says China's gross ocean product rose to over 9 trillion yuan in 2021. China's offshore wind power capacity ranks first among all countries after another 16.9 million kilowatts of wind power were connected to the country's grid network just last year. And in our feature segment today, we talk about the borders reopening. Of course, that happened on the 1st of April, and the impact on the economy. Of course, Malaysia is on the right track to achieve the GDP growth projection for this year with the reopening of international borders. The move will have a very positive impact on the economy, especially in the services sector. And for that conversation, joining me today, Economist Professor Emeritus BARJOYAI BADAI, to walk us through the economic impact following the reopening of the country's borders. Welcome, sir, to the program. Of course, it's good to speak to you and very excited to gain your insights as well. With Malaysia now transition into the pandemic phase, can you describe the country's economic progress at this point?
Right, okay. Basically, we are recovering very fast, and we are targeted to grow at over 5%. But of course, we are focusing on the tourism sector. Tourism sector contributed significantly to our economy. In 2019, actually the tourism sector contributed over 86 billion of GDP. We attracted 26 million visitors to Malaysia, but that has dwindled down to less than 20%, only 4.3 million in 2020. So dropped by 83%. And that is what we are trying to recover now. How do we bring back these tourists that now we have decided to open our border? Opening border is indeed a great move by the government. There are issues, there are challenges, there are strategies that we need to deal with the process of opening this border.
That's right. You talk about process and strategies as well. Although borders are reopening, there is or are some amount of uncertainty around it, especially with variants that are being discovered, and of course the Omicron variant as well. External headwinds, external factors as well, global factors that could be affecting the economy overall. How would you say, Prof, the best way we could take to maximize the benefits of the border reopening?
Okay. Actually, the easiest strategy is the low-hanging fruit. We have the two borders, Singapore and Thailand. And Singapore is very convenient because actually in the past year, tourists from Singapore accounts for 60% of visitors to Malaysia. Actually, most Singaporean were Malaysian before, and they have their balik kampung event every year, and so actually they come shopping to Johor Bahru and so on. So that is one important strategy that we must focus. Of course, Thailand is the other one. Thailand is also like our brother. I mean, people in Patani speak the same language, and they live and have relatives in Malaysia and vice versa. So we should attract these tourists from these two regions, and this may not be sophisticated tourists that we expect. And unfortunately, with this issue with Russia and Ukraine and the sanction, we are not likely to get far away tourists from Europe, from US, because things are uncertain, so that they will not want to be caught in Malaysia like that.
That's right. I must say, on the ground, I was out and about yesterday running errands, and I had gone perhaps to walk into 2 or 3 different shopping malls, and each restaurant and each shop, it was packed, and people were shopping, and people are out, they are spending that dollar, and of course there were many foreign faces as well, so we are seeing that buzz happening on the ground. But we talk about maximizing the benefits. What can we do then, Prof, to minimize incurring costs, because right now we are also in a recovery stage?
Yeah, of course, we are still very concerned about the pandemic, and I mean Thailand has just announced the new variants, and so we needs to be cautious that we may immediately catch that, and that can be another wave that we'll have to face. So we need to really invest on the equipments to scan all visitors that coming in into our country. And this is where perhaps we cannot be relying on these visitors to actually do their tests themselves. We have to have that equipment ready, and we have to have a more sophisticated equipment so that we can test and get the result immediately, and then act. Of course, the tourists will be a bit concerned about that. They don't want to be caught at the airport with the positive result and have to be quarantined for 7 days. That will
True.
be
I think,
a waste of holiday.
while we are enjoying this amount of freedom, we must not forget that we could very easily go back to a pandemic stage or phase as well. Prof, what can we expect in the second half of the year? More trade, more investments, perhaps, maybe return of business travelers?
Yeah, this is the issue actually. Though we talk about immediate drastic increase in tourism, but we cannot expect that all the tourist destination will be full and packed. Destination that is popular to the foreigners, Langkawi, Melaka, and so on, may still be half packed because the foreign tourists are not coming yet. So we should not be we should not be investing too much on that. We expect that this year the economy will grow at above 5%. Actually, initially we projected over 6%, but because of this crisis, and the sanction, we see that the global economy will slow down, and Malaysia will also be affected. And already now the price of goods and services increase in Malaysia drastically, and this affect the local people as well. So we have to be more cautious and be planning wisely to grow at 5%. 5%, I think, is a respectable growth rate for this year, 2022.
Prof, it's been exciting speaking to you and, of course, learning about what is, the projection of forecast for the next few months ahead of us as well. We'll check in with you very soon. That was our Professor Emeritus BARJOYAI BADAI weighing in a little bit on our borders reopening. Well, a total of 250,000 travelers were recorded to have entered the country and left the country as well through the main entry points over a 4-day period since the reopening of the country's border. According to the Immigration Director General, of the total recorded, 126,000 were arrivals, 28,000 departures involving Malaysians, about 50,000 arrivals and 43,000 departures involving foreign travels. Let's move on to international news at this point. The IMF, International Monetary Fund, has agreed on a 4-year extension of fund facility with Lebanon. However, the full approval will only come into force once Beirut enacts a set of 8 reform measures. An agreement is vital for Lebanon to rise up from crippling economic and financial meltdown since its 1975-1990 civil war. The extended fund arrangement would run over 46 months, with Lebanon requesting access of around $3 billion. On the other side of the Middle East, a Flashpoint Jerusalem site is witnessing nightly confrontations between Palestinians and Israeli police, raising concern over yet another eruption of violence this holy month of Ramadan. Tensions are again high as holidays from each religion, Easter, Passover, Ramadan, all coincide. Now, onto some updates on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. The UN General Assembly has agreed to suspend Russia from the UN Human Rights Council over reports of gross and systematic violations and abuses of human rights. The agreement came into place upon 93 US-led votes in favor of the decision and 24 nations voting against it. Meanwhile, 58 countries abstained from voting. And a Chinese media company claims that US's supply of arms to Taiwan is proof of its role in being the world's biggest source of chaos. The commentary is released following the US's recent announcement of the sale of $95 million worth of military equipment and technical support to Taiwan. The commentary added that the US frequent arms sales to Taiwan violates the 3 China-US Nations General Assembly Resolutions 2758, gravely damaging the China-US relations. In the meantime, the country's used vehicle export business is hit hard following sanctions on Russian banks and the depreciation of its currency. A port in the Chiba prefecture is overloaded with more than 3,000 vehicles waiting to be shipped off to Russia. This has left vehicle traders lost on how to deal with the problem. And in Japan, a brand new exhibition titled Japan Courts and Culture opens today at the Queen's Gallery near Buckingham Palace, basically in the UK. Featuring an array of Japanese artifacts from the British Royal Collection, the exhibition presents 350 years of artistic and diplomatic exchange between the courts of Britain and Japan, all the way from Queen Victoria to Queen Elizabeth. This exhibition is open to the public until February of next year. And what's trending on Twitter? Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan is up the list following the Supreme Court ruling for him to face a no confidence vote on April 9th. Meanwhile, SIRIM continues to be the center of netizen discussion after the agency's announcement of mask certification. Thankfully, momentarily sigh of relief among Malaysians following the recent clarifications. Those hashtags, hashtag Imran Khan and hashtag SIRIM. Well, that's all the time I have on the program today. Come back next week as we bring you more trending news, more discussions, more insights and views from our experts as well. What's important. We will be covering all of that next week. I'm Jessy Chahal. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.